Okay, ready?
Am I really dark on your screen?
A little
Hard
bit, but
to
it's,
see.
it's not. You're a little dark, but I can still see your face.
You think it's okay? Okay. Sure. Oh, here, let me take my tape off so I don't look wounded in my presentation. Okay. I'm ready. Are we recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Thane. I work here at the library. Thanks for letting me come to your teen group to do a little book talk. Halloween's closely approaching, so I have a Halloween-themed book talk. I'm going to discuss a couple books we have here at the library. They're all a little bit on the creepy side. And so let's get started. So the first book I'd like to talk about is called Anya's Ghost. It's actually a graphic novel by Vera Bolsha, and it's a very excellent story. It is about a young girl named Anya, who is a teenager. In a lot of ways, she's a typical teenager. She really just wants to fit in, but she doesn't fit in very well. She's horribly embarrassed by her Russian immigrant family. She hates her clothes, she hates everyone at her snooty prep school, and she thinks she's way too fat. And to make things even worse, one day, she falls down an abandoned well. And at the bottom of this well, there's a skeleton of a dead girl. And more than the skeleton, there is the ghost of the dead girl as well. A girl named Emily, who was murdered 90 years ago and has been stuck down in the bottom of this well. Well, Anya's stuck in this well for 2 whole days before someone finds her, and she eventually gets out, which is a big relief. But unbeknownst to Anya, she actually carries up a little sliver of Emily's skeleton, and that allows Emily to follow her back up out of the well. And Anya is not happy about this. She feels like a big enough freak to start with. She does not need a poltergeist hanging around with her. But as time goes on, they actually work out an arrangement. They actually become friends. And it turns out there are some advantages to having a ghost as a friend. Ghost is really good for helping you cheat at tests and sneak around. And the ghost helps Anya get the attention of Sean, this boy she has a mad crush on who doesn't even know she exists. And in return, Anya is going to help Emily solve who murdered her, because it's an unsolved mystery. And maybe if they figure out who murdered her, then she'll be able to move on to the next world. But as time goes on, and Anya actually gets to know Sean a little better, she decides he's a complete creep, and she doesn't have anything to do with him. But then Emily becomes weirdly fixated on getting them together and making them fall in love. And a dark side of Emily starts to show. And as Anya investigates deeper into the story of Emily's murder, she finds out things don't exactly add up the way Emily tells the story. And as it turns out, Emily is harboring a dark secret that will change everything and will put Anya and her whole family's lives at risk. To find out more, read Anya's Ghost by Vera Bolsha. So, speaking of ghosts, does anyone know the scientific term for someone who suffers from anxiety, for fear of ghosts? It ends in phobia. That's your hint. Does anyone have a guess?
Ghost phobia.
Close! It is phasmophobia. That is fear of ghosts. There have been over 500 different phobias recorded, but only about 100 are recognized by the American Psychological Association as legitimate mental disorders. They're considered anxiety disorders. They're actually the most common mental disorder in America is a phobia. Supposedly 1 in 10 people actually suffers from a phobia. And there are lots of great books about phobias. They're very interesting. But one of the best books about phobias is the Up Book of Phobias. It is a very exciting book because you open it up and the phobias come right out at you and scare you. And it's really great. It's by Gary Greenberg, and it's got pop-ups by Matthew Reinhardt. Any of you who might be pop-up connoisseurs might know Matthew Reinhardt. He's a very famous pop-up artist. So, we'll go through a couple of things in the book. So, dentophobia. Does anyone have any idea what dentophobia is? Yes?
Fear of dentists?
Very good. And here he is, coming at you, the dentist. This is a great pop-up because his little drill's coming right at your face. And it is, of course, fear of dentists. And next we have, a little harder, tapophobia. Does anyone know what this is? No? Here's a hint. Look at the picture. Can you tell what that is?
The fear of being buried alive.
Very good. Tapophobia is the fear of being buried alive. And we got one more here. It is coulrophobia. Does anyone know what that is?
The fear of being cold.
Of being what?
Cold.
Oh, no, not quite. Here's a hint. We'll look at the picture.
Oh.
Clowns.
Clowns, the fear of clowns, yes. Agoraphobia, the fear of clowns. So, this is the Up Book of Phobia. It is a great, great book. It's very exciting, it's very fun, I highly recommend it. And I've got one more phobia for you. Phobia. Does anyone have any idea what that is? No, it is actually the fear of tattoos. And if you're afraid of tattoos, you're not going to like the next book I want to talk about. So the next book I have is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. So The Illustrated Man is a collection of short stories by Ray Bradbury, and they're all a little bit creepy, and they're all very, very cool. But the story of The Illustrated Man is kind of like a framing device that wraps around all the stories. So when I first met The Illustrated Man, it was a hot September night. I was on the tail end of a 2-week hiking trip across Wisconsin. It was getting late, so I settled down for the night, and I made camp. And then he appeared over the horizon. He was a big man, a little bit older, just past middle age. You could tell once he was really strong, but he'd gone to flab a little bit in his later years. But he had a very gentle face, but very tired and worn looking. He approached me and asked if I knew anywhere he could get a job. I said I didn't. I said I was sorry. And he sighed and asked if I minded if he sat down next to me. I said, no, I don't mind. And I offered to share my meal with him. He told me, you'll regret it. Everyone eventually regrets it. Then he went on to tell me he was a carny, that he worked at circuses and festivals throughout the summer, but he could only hold a job for about 10 days before he was fired. I asked him what the problem was, and in reply, he slowly unbuttoned his shirt, and that's when I saw them, the illustrations. His entire body was covered in illustrations. To call them tattoos wouldn't do him justice. They were incredible. They were so intricate, so beautiful. It was as if Van Gogh or Michelangelo or Rembrandt had used his body as a canvas. The detail was incredible, and the colors were so vibrant they looked real. There were dozens of different scenarios played out all across his body. And he said during the day they didn't give him much trouble, but at night they started to move. Move, I said? He said, yeah, at night they move. They tell stories of the future. And he said the big problem is this blank spot on his back of his right shoulder. He said once he hangs around someone long enough, that spot fills in and it tells the story of their future. And so he said his coworkers would see themselves appear on his shoulder, and they'd see themselves age and die of old age or get hit by a car or contract some disease, and it would always freak them out. So that's why he always got fired, and that's always why he had to move on. So I pretty much decided this guy was crazy, but he seemed harmless enough, and the tattoos were just incredible. I couldn't stop looking at him. So I decided it was okay if he stayed the night with me, and we both laid down to go to sleep, and I kept watching the tattoos. I was mesmerized by how beautiful they were. And then they started to move. They told incredible stories, stories of the future, of rocket ships, of colonies on Mars, of androids, of amazing things, and it went on all night, until they were finally done, until I had seen every tattoo move. And then the shoulder blades started to fill in. And there on the shoulder blade, I saw a face, a very familiar face, my face. And I also saw the Illustrated Man, and there he was, his big hands locked around my neck, choking me to death. The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. So for our last book, we're going to talk about something very scary, summer camp. So this is Brain Camp by Susan Kim. It's another graphic novel. It's a very excellent graphic novel. Are you a loser? Do you have bad grades, bad attitude, no future? Brain Camp can change all that in one summer. It'll only cost you pretty much everything. So, Jenna is a dreamy artistic type, trapped in a family of math whizzes and musical prodigies. Lucas is a juvenile delinquent whose hobbies include stealing cars, who's more likely on his way to prison than graduating high school. When Jenna and Lucas's parents are invited to meet recruiters who invite their kids to the exclusive Camp Fielding, which has a reputation for changing problem childs into prodigies, they jump on the chance and they send their kids off to Camp Fielding. But when Lucas and Jenna get there, it's a very strange camp. They don't actually teach you anything. They just throw you into all these different disciplines, and they just let kids pick them up themselves. It's very strange, but what's even stranger is suddenly the kids do start picking up. Suddenly the kids do become geniuses and become music prodigies and math whizzes and volleyball champions, kind of out of nowhere. And it happens cabin by cabin, very suddenly. It happens to the kids who remain in each cabin, because every time a cabin graduates to geniushood, a couple kids go missing. But the kids that remain become these geniuses, but they kind of become vacant geniuses, little zombie Einsteins, they call them. And they're a little creepy. And there they are. And Jenna and Lucas know something is up, and they start to investigate, and they find out that the counselors are doing something to the kids, something horrible that's turning them into geniuses. But what's even worse is when it doesn't work, what happens to the kids is very frightening. So Brain Camp, it'll make you a genius, but is it worth the cost? By Susan Kim. And that is pretty much everything I have. Thanks for letting me present to you guys. We have all these books in the library, so if you want to check them out, come talk to me and we'll find them. Thanks.
Awesome.